What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I will be looking at the new Nissan GT-R50 by Italdesign in the Hypercar Class. It is kind of insane. Yes, this is the only GT-R we have in the Hypercar category, which is a bit odd, but then again, it kind of makes sense because people might be like, well, why is this car not a regular Street Tier 2 vehicle? And I would say they probably wanted to mix it up because we have a lot of GT-Rs in that category. So insanely enough, guys, one thing I did not know, there's only 19 of these in existence. And yes, we actually managed to get the licensing for this thing in the crew, which is honestly just crazy to me. But looking at the interior in this car, guys, I really love the way this thing looks. I also have to ask a very odd question. Do you guys actually like Nissan GT-Rs? Now, I know some people might be like, Block, what do you mean, bro? Everybody does. And I do feel like, yes, that's going to be true, but does everybody actually like them? With how many of these cars have basically been out, like they have been making the car for, a very long time. I want to say like 17, 18 years, could be wrong, something around that, maybe, 15 years or something, but a lot of people might be like, well, they haven't changed it, it's the same car. What do you guys think about the GTR in the comments below? So when looking at the interior in this thing, it's obviously going to have some really nice looking Alcantara. I think that's what that is. I like the way the steering wheel looks, kind of gives you like that illusion of like the old GTR. And it's also going to have a similar small screen there with buttons, which you guys know what's funny about that? Most of the new cars have a gigantic screen in them, where we actually have a regular screen with buttons on the GTR. That's insane. Where we actually have new cars with a gigantic screen where everything's in it, where people are actually looking for buttons, so I have to give them credit on that. On the bottom right, we're going to see the comfort. You can have like the traction control. I'm guessing that's what that is. But overall, though, I do like the fact that the GTR's interior is going to be like a mix of something newer, but it's also going to be a mix of something older. I do like how they did that. Now, the one thing I have to talk about is going to be the outside design of this car, bro. So obviously on the outside of it, you guys will see the GTR 50 on the bottom of it. I love the rims, and the overall design of this car just looks so dang dope. Look at the wing popping up, bro. That looks sick. Also, there is no customization for this car, if you might have been wondering, which, looking at it, isn't all that surprising, to be honest. I mean, why would you want to customize it? Now, when it does come to the sound of the Nissan GT-R 50, it's most likely going to sound fairly familiar. Also, the rims are carbon fiber. I just noticed that. Now, similar to the warp drive, I also had to do a quick top speed test on the GT-R 50 to see what this car can actually do. So I did end up jumping onto this highway again, guys, because I feel like it's one of the easier places to at least go after a full top speed run. Now, similar to that car, I'm also using a regular full chemist set with extra pump and pure on it. So if you guys are wondering, I will not be using like a boot digger or something, which obviously might make it a tad slower because you obviously don't have as much nitrous. But here, let me get around this turn and not crash. Also, this car is legit basically stock right now. Love the way this car feels, by the way. It feels awesome with handling. Okay, so 297 miles an hour, making it 2 miles per hour faster than the Hyperion, which I'm not really too surprised about that, but at the same time, I was kind of a bit surprised this car is not hitting 300 miles an hour. But then again, though, at least we're actually getting another car that does around 300, which I wouldn't say 8 miles an hour would make a huge difference on it, unless you're most likely racing full highway stuff like that. So it's most likely going to come down to like the overall acceleration of that vehicle with the way that it can hold speed, and of course the handling of it is going to make a big difference. So jumping into the race here with the lovely GT-R 50, I might actually do a second one after this race because I really love the way this car feels. Funny thing is, with many of the cars, you normally have to like customize like the handling on them to make them turn better, which I did have to do with the Hyperion because it was kind of being a bit wonky. This car, though, guys, really does feel great, basically completely stock. Like, I love the way that it feels, and I would say right off the bat, it does feel better than the actual warp drive and how that thing handled, even compared to this one. I'm also going to go out on a limb here and say this car is definitely better than that one. The reason why I do say that is, yes, that car obviously does around the same top speed as this one, but here's the thing, though. Top speed is not everything on a car, man. We all do know not every time you're actually driving the car, you're going to be doing 295 miles an hour. In fact, you might actually be doing races like this one where you might have turns and stuff, and you are never going to have that top speed ever being hit. which I would say some of the cars might fail at something like that. But the GT-R 50 though really does feel so dang awesome. I know this thing is obviously all-wheel drive, and you can definitely feel it. The funny thing is the warp drive was also all-wheel drive, and that car felt kind of wonky around corners. I did have to adjust it slightly. Wasn't the biggest fan of how it handled, but I did like the way that car sounded, so at least I had that going for it. And I am shocked I'm getting passed by a Bugatti. Oh, well, luckily he can't drive, so that does help me a little bit. You know, the funny thing about the GT-R, guys, we all do know right now, all the GT-Rs are obviously in the Tier 2 category, which I have to say this, there is a lot of them. There is also a lot of GT-Rs in the game in general, but here's the thing, we don't have a hypercar one. Now we actually do, and the funny thing is, it's actually pretty good, bro, because normally the hypercars we get are, well, not that good, or they're not at least functional, to where you could probably run something like that in a grand race or even a summit and do decently with it. Whereas many of the hypercars, you basically might use it once or twice and go, okay, bro, it looks cool, it sounds kind of cool, but guess what? The car is complete dog water, which is probably a weird way to say that, and that's also a very old meme from something else. But I just feel like you would use some of those cars, like, for example, the warp drive, and you would most likely go, I mean, the car's kind of mid. I'm going to try out the GT-R 50, and boom, the car is legit so much nicer, man. I don't really understand the way that they actually design the cars in this game to where you obviously have good cars and you obviously have bad ones. That's going to be pretty normal in most racing games. But the thing is, a lot of the cars are just terrible to where I feel like many of them could actually be more functional and usable in many events. Just like something like the lovely new GT-R 50 Italdesign seems to not only look good, but it performs insanely well. So to sum up the new GT-R 50 by Italdesign, I would actually recommend picking this car up. Now I would say a lot of people might not want to spend $2.3 million on the new bundle, so I would actually recommend waiting for this car to come out specifically if you want this one, because I don't know if you can actually buy the cars separately at the moment. At least I don't know if you can, even if that's an option yet. Normally they actually have the bundle, then they bring out the cars separately afterwards, which I'm going to guess right now and say the new GT-R 50 is probably going to be around maybe 900 to like 1.1 million, like something around that. Also, I want to apologize that I'm actually going to be in a different place now, because when I was recording this before, the game actually crashed on me, which was kind of unfortunate. Weirdly enough, I've actually been having the game crash a tad more often the past couple of weeks than it did before. Don't know if it's going to be like the update or whatever that might have been causing that, but it's definitely been pretty dang annoying seeing that a bit when trying to drive around or like look at something in the summit, and boom, your entire screen goes black and you get an error code. Is not that fun of an experience. What are you doing, bro? You know, the AI have to be from GTA in this game, and they legit do not know how to drive. But besides all that though, I would like to know what you guys think about the new Nissan GT-R 50 in the comments below. Do you like this car? What are some of your favorite things about it? And also, what are your thoughts about this thing being a hypercar? Which, to be honest, I'm actually glad they made this a hypercar. If they actually would have made this a street tier 2 vehicle, I bet a lot of players most likely would have been like, why is this not a hypercar? So it's probably going to be good that at least this car is actually fairly functional compared to something like the Warp Drive, which I feel like is not all that great. Again, guys, let me know your thoughts on this car in the comments below. And I have to admit, this thing is pretty sweet.